AI is transforming how software testing works. But using AI tools is not the same as using them professionally. The UAESTQB certified tester testing with generative AI certification defines the structured, internationally recognized standard for applying generative AI in testing. It validates your ability to engineer effective prompts, evaluate AI outputs, enhance automation, and integrate AI into real testing workflows. This is more than experimentation. It is professional competence. Stand out. Prove your expertise. Get certified in testing with generative AI.
Hello, and welcome back to the next session of A4Q Testing Summit. My name is Atefe Amlashi, and I'm your host for this session, where I have Dr. Abbas Ahmad with me. Abbas is accredited trainer for UAESTQB. He's a researcher and technology leader. He's also the president of UAESTQB local board in United Arab Emirates. Welcome, Abbas.
Hello, thank you for having me.
And before handing over to Abbas, I should mention that Abbas is actively involved in developing UAESTQB City GenAI syllabus. And today he will talk about using generative AI in testing. Do not forget to vote for his presentation if you like his presentation for the best speaker or best presentation at our website. Abbas, stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Atefe. Thank you for this introduction. So as Atefe mentioned, I'm one of the product owners of it's not new anymore. It has been around for about a year now, testing with generative AI, which is a bit different from the City AI, where we learn how to test the models themselves. And I wanted to start today's talk because of the title. We are speaking about generative AI in software testing. And I wanted to start this talk with a small reminder of what is actually software testing. What are the activities? What do we do as software testers? So for that, I'm going to go back to the UAESTQB certification, and more precisely the foundation level certification, which talks about the software testing activities. So in the foundation level, we define, the UAESTQB defines seven software testing activities. Planning of the test, monitoring and control, test analysis, design, implementation, execution, and finally completion. So you have on the screen a little bit the description of each software testing activity. And we have also to really define who does what. So as a tester, what do I do? Am I the one planning the test activities? Am I the one doing the analysis? Well, actually, you have two main roles in the software testing activities. The manager, who is the responsible for planning, monitoring and control, and the test completion. And after that, you have the tester, who has the responsibility of the other testing activities, which are test analysis, design, implementation, and execution. So today I want to concentrate on the tester role. And when we are going to speak about generative AI in software testing, I really want to concentrate on how generative AI can help you as a tester. I know that it helps a lot also with the test manager role, but we are not going to focus on those activities today. So as a tester, why I should care about generative AI. So you have the activities. Maybe you have been doing tests for a long time. How can generative AI help you? Why you should care about using generative AI to help you in your test activities? And then we are going to see a little bit later on. I'm going to talk really briefly about the specialization of the tester, because when we are speaking about a tester, we are speaking about testers in general. I'm not specializing. Am I a test analyst? Am I a technical test analyst? Am I a test automation engineer? But independently of the specialization, we want to see why should I care about generative AI and how it can help me. As testers, we really strive to be more effective and more efficient. What does that mean? What does it mean to be more effective? What does it mean to be more efficient? And really, you have to think about it as in general and not focus on what specialization of tester you are, whether it be automation, whether it be the test analysis or technical test analysis and so on. So being effective as a tester, it means that you want to reach your goals depending on the test activity that you are doing. Let me explain with a small example. If you are doing, for example, test analysis, in test analysis, the objective is, for example, maybe to cover all your requirements, to identify what to test for all of your requirements. So the goal is to have the biggest coverage, whether it be requirement, user stories, depending on the software development lifecycle that you are using. But the idea is you want bigger coverage. If you are, for example, creating test automation scripts for unit tests, for example, at the component testing level, you want to have a bigger coverage of your code. Maybe 80%, 90%, that's your goal, you want to reach it. And when we speak about efficiency, we speak about using less resources in order to achieve your goal. So you want to use less resources. It can be, for example, physical resources. I want to use less memory. I want to use less bandwidth. I want my test to cost less. So having less test cases while still achieving your goal. So being effective and efficient, that's what we want. And also, when we speak about efficiency, we also have the time factor. So we usually want our tests to be faster. We want them to take less time while still being effective. So we really need to be careful about effectiveness and efficiency, because we can be fast without achieving our goals. We can achieve our goals without being fast. And GenAI is really here to give you a combination of both effectiveness and efficiency. So we want to have the performance and achieving all of our goals, and GenAI is here really to help you. And you should really think of it as a tool to achieve both of those categories. Like any automation tool, which allows you to cover more of your application and execute the test faster than manual tests. So we want to create test cases faster. We want our test cases to cover all the edge cases, and GenAI is a tool that will help us to do that. So when speaking about generative AI, and it has been really crazy for the last 3 to 4 years, the pace that GenAI has evolved, and not only in software testing, of course, but the amount of solution that today exists, it can be quite overwhelming. So we all know, maybe you all discovered generative AI with ChatGPT, which is the company that creates that has created ChatGPT is OpenAI, but today you have really a lot of choice, and choosing which generative AI provider can be quite overwhelming. But what I want to focus on today is not really the generative AI provider that you're going to use, is how do you use generative AI? And that's what is more important. Um, in the certified tester foundation level, we speak in this in the syllabus, we have some testing principles, and one of them is that testing is context dependent. So which provider is not really important here, depending on the context of the company you are working for, or the context that you are testing. You will have some some ways of choosing. Maybe it is related to your organization, and so on. But again, which provider is not really important. What is really important, and the message that I want to pass today, is how do I use generative AI and in my testing activities. We have three main ways of interacting with a model. So we usually speak about LLMs. LLM stands for large language model, but we also have SLMs, small language models. The difference is that large language models are trained on bigger data sets, SLMs on smaller data sets. And we are going to speak, I'm going to show you some of the drawbacks and risks involved in using one or the other. But here are the three main ways of interacting with AI. So you can, the most known one is chatbots. So you have a chat window. I have a small demo about chatbots where you put your prompt. So usually it's text, but you can also, the prompt can have different contextualization. You can put pictures, you can put sound, so your voice, you can give voice command, videos, pictures, text. It's not really important the way that you transmit your request to the LLM, but the chatbot is more of an interactive way of you ask a question, you have a response, and then you follow up on it. Another way to use LLMs is via the API. So usually it's REST APIs, but there are other application programming interface for API. But the most common one is that you will have access to an LLM which is somewhere on the cloud or locally, and then you can send your request via HTTP. You do the usual REST API, so get, post, put, delete, and so on, and you have your response. And the third way of interacting with generative AI is by using AI agents, and this is actually a relatively new way of using generative AI, where we call that agentic AI. And the last one is where we are going to ask the AI to execute tests, where we are not going to generate any test cases, we are not going to generate any test scripts. So we go directly from your goal. So that's the idea. What do you want to test? You explain the end goal, and you let the AI agent create the tests, run them, and give you the results. This is relatively new, and I'm going to speak a little bit later about the minor update to the City GenAI testing with generative AI syllabus, where we added a part speaking about AI agents. How do you choose the right way to communicate with an LLM or with a model? How do you choose which one? There's no really right or wrong decision here. Again, I go back to the testing fundamentals. So you have the testing principles. One of them is it is context dependent, depending on what test activity you are doing, depending on your skills, so your technical skills, and where you are in the testing activities. The decision is going to be basically natural to you. So if you are doing some exploratory testing, chatbots are more appropriate for this task. If you are automating tests, maybe you are going to use APIs in order to send, for example, some requirements to generate the scripts and then to execute them. Really depending on the test activity that you are doing, the decision on which way you communicate, and maybe you don't have to choose one way and stick with it. So maybe it can be a combination of the different way. And actually, this is what we see in the market today. Many testing teams will have a combination of different techniques to interact with LLMs today. So how do I structure my prompt? How do I ask an LLM or a model? How do I ask it to do things for me? And what we came up with is structured prompting. Structured prompting is really a way to have reliable and context-aware output. So in the generative AI term, we call that the inference. So that's the output when you want to ask an LLM to do something for you, depending on what test activity you are doing. You are expecting an output format, and in order to have, you're expecting an inference. In order to have something which is reliable, so a product coming out of the LLM which is reliable, we have the structured prompting. The structured prompting is basically a decomposition of the request that you send to the LLM in 6 categories. State your role to the LLM, give it a context, instruction. So the instruction is basically what you want the model to do. Give it data, and because the LLM, even if it's trained on big amount of data, it does not have your specific data for your project. Give it constraints, and this is something which is really important also, to be able to differentiate between the context and between the instructions and the constraints. I have an example just after that. And finally, always be precise about the output format that you want. Don't let the AI give you whatever output format it decides to, because it has seen it in its training data. So here's an example of a structured prompt for test case generation, for example, where we have an example where we state our role as a senior QA engineer. So maybe I can go to the next slide where I show you the different structure. So the role is, you should say your role. So as a senior QA automation engineer, that's an example for generating test cases. You give it the context to the LLM, and the instruction. That's where I wanted to stop a little bit, because it's important to differentiate between instructions and constraints. So generate a set of positive and negative end-to-end test cases. That's when we speak about instructions, is what you want the model to do. So what to do you are going to state them in the instructions, and do not mistake them for the constraints. Don't forget to give it constraints, and the constraints will tell the model on how to do your instructions. So assume the user is logged in, focus on only on functional test. You tell the model on how to do, and a combination of both is really important when you prompt the LLM. And of course, never forget the output format. The more precise you are, the better it is. But, and this is a big but, sometimes when you are too precise, you are constraining the model, you limit its creativity, and you have to be careful about how much details you put inside your structured prompt. So those are six parts of a structured prompt. You don't have to have always all of those parts inside your prompt, but the more you have, the better your results will be. And of course, always be careful about giving too much detail, constraining too much the LLM. You can have less usable results, or results which will not allow you to be effective and efficient. And while speaking of that, I wanted to speak about some of the risks that you may encounter, or you have, if you have used LLMs at some point, you have encountered this first risk, which is hallucinations. A hallucination is when the LLM will give you wrong information. For example, I have a small demo where we are going to ask an LLM. So we're going to ask a model via a chatbot to tell us what are the test types. So we are going to ask it, what are, according to the UAESTQB Certified Tester Foundation Level version 4.0, what are the test types? And I'm going to use a chatbot, which is Arena AI, and I'm going to ask it, so according to UAESTQB Certified Tester Foundation Level version 4.0, what are the, I put test times, what are the test types? Let's ask Mistral. Small Mistral is a French LLM, and we are going to ask it this question, and it's going to give us a response. And it's telling us according to the UAESTQB. So I'm going to go up, Certified Tester Foundation Level. Test types are categorized based on the test objective and the test levels, which they are applied. Okay, so let's see which one I have as a result, as an answer. Functional testing, that's correct. Non-functional testing, that's also correct. Now we start to see some weird testing types. So change-related testing, defect-based testing. So unit testing is a test level. We start to see some inconsistencies. So this is basically false information, and that's what we call hallucination. And if I am a student, or if I'm a junior tester and I have not read the UAESTQB Foundation Level version 4.0 syllabus, I have no idea if this information is correct or not. So always verify the output. So what I'm saying right now is you cannot trust the output of a model. Models, generative AI by nature is probabilistic, non-deterministic, so you cannot trust it 100%. You always need a human in the loop, verify the output. If we look at the syllabus, so UAESTQB Foundation Level, the syllabus defines 4 test types: non-functional, functional, black box testing, and white box testing. This is not something which I can spot if I don't have the knowledge beforehand, or if I don't have a documentation where I can verify the output of the LLM. So always verify the output of what is being rendered to you. Another demo that I wanted to do, and where I want to raise your awareness about is how, as a tester, for example, in the activity here where I want to create test cases for, I want to create automated test cases with Postman. So Postman is an application that allows you to create API test cases. And it has a feature to create, so to create automatically. It has an AI feature to create automatically test cases for you, test scripts, which will be run automatically. So let's jump into Postman. Here I have an endpoint where I can ask the API to give me a list of countries. It will answer me with a list of IDs for the countries, and I can get a country by its ID. For example, country ID 1 is France normally. Okay, so this is the result of my GET request. And for now, I didn't do any tests. So because I did not verify the output of my request, but I want to create here, I can create test cases in JavaScript. And I will ask Postman. Basically, it's going to use one of the models provided by Postman. So it can be any one of those models. I will let it choose which model it uses to create the test. But I will ask it to generate test cases for my request. And I see a lot of testers using applications that have the generative AI features to create test cases, exactly like I am doing right now. So the AI is working on it. It's creating test cases for my request, and it provides me a list of test cases. So I will just approve those test cases, and let's have a look on what is being generated. So the first test case is that it's going to check if the status code is 200, and we have other. So if the response time is under 3,000 milliseconds, actually. It will check if we have a valid JSON and so on. So I'm not going to go into all of the details. It's going to check all the fields of my response, and I can check the result of those tests. So if I go to test results and try to run the same request, I have all my tests which are passed. So maybe you already have spotted it, but this AI has created for me test cases based on the response of my request. In my request, I had a response with a status code of 200, and the AI saw this response and used it to set my test oracle to 200. So you should really be careful as a software tester about what the model has created for you, because if we don't validate that with the specification of your software, maybe never use the output of a system under test in order to create your test. That's what generative AI will usually do if you don't give it your requirements, if you don't give it all the information it needs to create the test cases. It will just use the data it has available to it. Maybe in your specifications, in your non-functional requirements, you have something which is different than 3000. So here's a request for 3 seconds, and maybe you have a requirement for 200 milliseconds, for example. So always verify, don't be complacent. You need to have all the knowledge, and always verify the output of the LLM. Let me go back here. So we have in the ISTQB, we have the syllabus, so certified tester testing with generative AI. You have this syllabus where we speak a little bit about in much more details about what I just presented. We speak about exactly how to prompt engineer. We see a lot more risks. So here I showed you some hallucinations. We see more risk, for example, reasoning errors, biases, how to mitigate those risks. And we also raise awareness about using generative AI, because generative AI has a high cost compared to traditional software testing, because AI needs to be trained on large quantities of data, and it's using a lot of resources. Even just asking a question to an AI will use a lot of resources in order to give you a response. And finally, in the last part of the syllabus, we speak about deploying and how do I integrate generative AI in a test organization. We go a little bit in a dive, a bit deeper in LLM ops. So how do I integrate LLMs? How do I integrate generative AI in my continuous integration CI/CD pipeline by using the different methodologies that I have explained for API, using generative AI with APIs. And one of the differences of testing with generative AI syllabus, and specifically how do we learn, how do I upskill myself to learn about testing with generative AI depending on the test activity. It's by practicing, and this is really important, and we wanted this practice aspect to be part of the training, and we wanted you to really practice. That's why this training is the syllabus was conceived as a 2 days training for you, but focusing really on hands-on learning. There is more than half of the syllabus is the time allocated for the training. More than half of it is training, so you learn by practicing. It has more than 24 practical exercises where you learn going from test analysis to test design, implementation, execution. How do I make sure that my requirements, my test basis is correct? How do I take these requirements to create acceptance criteria, to create test cases, to create test scripts, to execute them? You see the whole, it covers the whole testing activities for the tester and not the test manager for now. So it's basically very hands-on, really high energy, high impact, because you learn by practicing and not just reading concepts which are abstract. And I really encourage you to download the syllabus and learn more about it. So what are the key takeaways of my little presentation today is that generative AI, specifically when dealing in software testing, it's really useful. So you are going, when I say useful, it's going to be efficient and effective when you are in control. When you know what you are doing, you know you have the knowledge to give it enough details in your prompt in order for you to ask the correct prompt, so the correct questions. How do I prompt it correctly for me to have exactly what I need? Independently of the risk, so you have a lot of risk, but the biggest risk uh, is trusting. So what the AI gives you as an output, the biggest risk is overtrust. Don't be complacent with what is being generated. At least for now, today, we have not achieved a level where you can just trust everything that the AI gives you back. It is, remember, non-deterministic, probabilistic. You need to know what is being generated and do not trust it. So check always the output of what is being generated. You have to evaluate and validate that the results fits your need in your testing activities. And finally, my last message is that you need to know how to use AI, but you need to know also how to test. So a combination of knowing what do you want to do and how to ask the AI to do it for you. And you need to know, of course, what you want to do, because you need to validate. So I'm not going to ask an AI to generate code which I cannot validate. That's the idea I wanted to give you. Always be able to validate what are the outputs of a generative AI. That's the idea of my speech, and have my skill scope condition. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Abbas. Very insightful and practical. I see we have some questions, and yeah, do you think AI would replace software testers?
That's a I hope not, but that's a really great question, because uh, speaking as of 2026, no, that's absolutely not the case. The pace in which generative AI is evolving, it is leaning towards that, but I think we have some more years ahead of us where we are still needed. As I said, we always need to verify and validate the output of AI. So you will always need competent testers in order to improve what generative AI can produce. But today, no. Maybe in 2 years, we can look back at what I said today and and prove me wrong. But not for today.
Okay, and another question that I can see that would you trust generative AI to use to write test cases for critical systems like banking, healthcare, or aviation? Why or why not?
So, uh, if that's also a good question, because if you told me that, so if I'm at the airport and I'm boarding a new plane that has just been developed, and they told me that it was fully tested by AI and no testers, I would not go into that plane personally. that's that's the basically that's it. So I would not trust it. As we've seen, you need to be able to validate, and as of today, you cannot trust AI to be 100% with no hallucinations and giving you exactly what you need, because you need competent testers who does that.
So still we need someone and human to review the result from AI. Okay.
Always.
Thank you, Abbas. Okay, it's almost at the end of the second day of A4Q Testing Summit. We had a lot of session about AI, and we see that is a very big topic for these days. I hope our audience they enjoy this presentation. So if you like the presentation, please scan the QR code. You can vote for Abbas. And if you missed any presentation, you can find all of them on our website or at A4Q YouTube channel. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy.
Thank you.
Generative AI is transforming how software testing works. But using AI tools is not the same as using them professionally. The UAESTQB Certified Tester Testing with Generative AI certification defines the structured, internationally recognized standard for applying generative AI in testing. It validates your ability to engineer effective prompts, evaluate AI outputs, enhance automation, and integrate AI into real testing workflows. This is more than experimentation. It is professional competence. Stand out. Prove your expertise. Get certified in testing with generative AI.